I know you're probably feeling frustrated, exhausted, and maybe even hopeless. Relationships have a way of testing us, pushing us to our limits, and making us wonder if they're even worth the effort. They can feel like a constant uphill battle, leaving you drained and questioning everything. But let me ask you this: are you absolutely sure you've considered everything? Have you taken the time to separate fleeting emotions from true clarity? Sometimes in the heat of the moment, we make decisions based on pain or frustration, not realizing the ripple effects they might have. Before you walk away, before you close the door on something that might hold more value than you realize, take a breath, hear me out. Because the truth is, sometimes it's not the relationship itself that needs to change. It's how you're looking at it, how you're approaching it. A shift in perspective can uncover new possibilities, rekindle what feels lost, and help you see the bigger picture. Let's explore this together and see if the answers you're searching for are closer than they appear. You don't have to navigate this alone. No, start with why. Why are you thinking about giving up on her? Is it because the connection feels distant, or because she isn't meeting your expectations? Take a moment to ask yourself, what's really going on? Are these frustrations a reflection of something temporary, a rough patch, or do they stem from something deeper? It's easy to feel overwhelmed when things aren't going as planned. But before you decide to walk away, let's pause and reflect. The Stoics offer a timeless lesson. Don't let emotions steer your actions. Seneca wisely said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." When frustration or disappointment starts to cloud your judgment, it's crucial to pause and gain perspective. What's truly causing these feelings? Is it because you deeply care for her and the thought of losing her feels overwhelming? Or is it because you're exhausted from trying, unsure if it's making any difference? Taking the time to untangle these emotions is essential in deciding whether this relationship is worth holding on to or if it's time to let go. Think about the moments that brought you together. In the first place, the laughter, the connection, the support you gave each other. Have those moments truly disappeared, or have they been overshadowed by current challenges? Remember, every relationship goes through seasons. Just as the Stoics remind us that winter eventually gives way to spring, tough times in relationships often pave the way for growth, if you're willing to endure and work through them. Imagine you've been arguing a lot lately, and every conversation feels like walking on eggshells. It's draining, and you start to wonder if it's even worth it. But before giving up, consider this. Have you both actually communicated your feelings openly, or have you been expecting her to read your mind? Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control: your words, your actions, your patience. You can't control how she reacts, but you can approach her with honesty and calm, letting her see the real you, instead of a frustrated version clouded by resentment. There's another aspect to consider. Your expectations. Are you holding her to an idealized version of who she should be, instead of accepting her for who she is? Epictetus reminds us, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and your life will flow smoothly. When we let go of rigid expectations, we often find that what we already have is enough. So ask yourself, have you done everything you can to nurture this connection? Have you given her the space to feel safe and understood, just as you would want for yourself? Relationships are not about perfection. They're about two imperfect people choosing each other over and over. Even when it's hard, if there's still love, still potential. Don't let frustration be the reason you give up. Let reason guide you, not fleeting emotions. no to the bigger picture. I know emotions can run high. Maybe you're frustrated, hurt, or feeling unappreciated. It's easy to let those feelings take over and convince yourself that walking away is the only option. But before you make that call, ask yourself, what does this relationship mean to you? Has she been someone who's brought light into your life, helped you grow, or stood by you in ways that others haven't? Or is this just a rough patch, a phase that's clouding the bigger picture? Picture your life 5 years from now. Will this argument, this phase, or this misunderstanding still matter? Or will it just be a small hiccup in a story that's worth continuing? Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that obstacles are just part of the journey. Ask yourself, is this a moment to overcome or a sign to let go? Consider your relationship as a story. Every meaningful story has moments of conflict, where the characters face challenges that either pull them apart or draw them closer. Right now, you're at that point. How do you want the next chapter to look? Let's take an example. Maybe she's been distant lately, and it's making you feel unimportant. Instead of assuming the worst, what if you approached it with the Stoic mindset of curiosity and control? You can't control her feelings or her actions, but you can control how you show up. Have you asked her what's on her mind? Have you created a space where she feels safe to share her struggles? Sometimes it's not about fixing everything in the moment, but being steady, present, and patient. Qualities the Stoics value deeply. Now think about her role in your life. Has she been the person who makes you laugh when you're down? The one who believed in you when you doubted yourself? If she has, don't let temporary feelings convince you to give up on something that might be worth fighting for. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." You have the power to choose your reaction here. Are you acting out of frustration, or are you responding with intention? Stepping back doesn't mean ignoring the problem. It means allowing yourself to see it for what it truly is, not what your emotions tell you it is. So before you make a decision that you can't take back, take that deep breath. Think about what she means to you, what this relationship has added to your life, and whether this moment is worth ending it all. Sometimes what feels like the end is just the start of a deeper connection. The choice is yours. What story will you write next? Before we move on, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever faced a moment like this in a relationship, one where you had to pause and consider the bigger picture? How did you navigate it? If you're not sure what to share, just leave this sentence in the comments. I choose to focus on the bigger picture. Your perspective might resonate with someone else, and it's always inspiring to hear how others approach challenges. Let's keep this conversation going. No. 3. Are you truly seeing her? When was the last time you really saw her? Not just as the person who's been frustrating you, but as someone who might be silently carrying her own battles. Think about it. Could there be something beneath her actions? Something you haven't noticed because you're focused on your own pain or disappointment? Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, reminds us we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. This isn't just a clever saying. It's a powerful reminder that understanding must come before judgment. Imagine if you truly listened not just to her words, but to what she isn't saying. Maybe she's overwhelmed by stress, battling insecurities, or wrestling with fears she hasn't been able to share. I know it's hard when her behavior feels unfair, but Stoicism teaches us to separate what's within our control from what isn't. Her reactions Her struggles, they may not even be about you. Instead of fixating on her actions, ask yourself, what does she need right now? How can I approach her with patience and empathy? By doing so, you're not only honoring her humanity, but also strengthening your own character. Think about a time when someone really saw you, when they understood your struggles without judgment. Didn't that feel like a lifeline? Now imagine being that lifeline for her. The act of truly seeing her, of putting aside your assumptions and opening your heart, could change everything. It could turn frustration into connection, distance into understanding. Before you give up, give this one effort a chance to lead with compassion. You might just discover that she's not pushing you away, but calling out for someone to truly see her. No, for check your ego. It's a hard pill to swallow, I know, but sometimes the problem isn't the situation itself. It's our own ego getting in the way. Think about it. Are you clinging to pride because it feels safer than being vulnerable? Are you holding on to the need to be right because admitting otherwise feels like a loss? Vulnerability can feel like weakness, but what if it's actually the greatest form of strength? The Stoics believe that true power lies in self-mastery, not in dominating others or controlling external events. As Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." So ask yourself, are you letting pride or fear dictate your actions, keeping you from healing what might still be saved? Could the courage to be vulnerable lead you closer to reconciliation? Let's say you're standing at a crossroads in a relationship. Maybe she's pulled away, maybe there's tension, or maybe you've both said things you regret. It's easy to think, if only she would change, this could work. But what if the first step isn't about changing her? What if it's about looking inward and asking yourself, what can I change about my approach, my mindset, my expectations? Humbling yourself doesn't mean lowering your worth. It means recognizing that being right isn't as valuable as being connected. It means understanding that apologizing, even when you think you weren't entirely wrong, isn't a sign of weakness, but of courage and emotional maturity. Ask yourself, have you really done everything within your power to bridge the gap? Because sometimes all it takes is one sincere conversation, one genuine apology, or one vulnerable moment to turn things around. Don't let your pride build a wall that's harder to break down later. If there's still something worth fighting for, fight not with her, but with the parts of yourself that are afraid to bend. Because in the end, mastering yourself will always be more powerful than winning an argument or holding on to resentment. What's your take on this? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where pride or fear stopped you from making the first move toward resolution? I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments below, or if you prefer, simply drop this sentence: true strength lies in humility. Your input could spark a meaningful discussion and help others reflect on their own journey. With that said, let's move forward to the next point. No. 5. Communication versus assumption. Let's take a moment to talk about something that quietly destroys so many relationships. Assumptions. They creep in when things feel uncertain, when emotions run high, or when you're left trying to fill in the blanks about her thoughts, feelings, or actions. But here's the thing: how often are those assumptions rooted in fact? Have you taken the time to really hear her side? Or are you letting your imagination write the story? Seneca once said, "If you wish to remove doubt, replace it with clarity." That's the kind of wisdom relationships thrive on. Before you throw in the towel, pause and ask yourself if you've sought clarity, or if you've let assumptions take control. Have you told her how you're feeling, your fears, your concerns? your hopes, and just as importantly, have you listened? Really listened, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Imagine this: you're upset because she seems distant. You assume she's lost interest or that she's pulling away for reasons that have nothing to do with you. But what if she's overwhelmed with work or dealing with something personal that she hasn't yet shared? You won't know unless you ask. Without that conversation, you're building walls of misunderstanding that can be so hard to break down later. Stoicism reminds us to focus on what's within our control. You can't control her thoughts or her feelings, but you can control how you approach the situation. Instead of letting your assumptions guide you, take the courageous step of having an honest conversation. Yes, it might feel uncomfortable. Vulnerability always does. But it's through that openness, that real understanding, and sometimes even healing happens. Think about this. How many relationships could have been saved if only one person had said, "Hey, I feel like there's some distance between us. Can we talk about it?" It's simple, but it's powerful. Communication builds a bridge over the gaps that assumptions create. It's how you close the distance instead of letting it grow. So before you give up on her, take a deep breath and ask yourself, have I really tried to understand her, or have I just assumed I already know? Have I replaced doubt with clarity? Because sometimes all it takes to save a relationship is the courage to lean in instead of walking away. No. 6. Is it her or is it you? This might be the most uncomfortable question, but it's also the most important. Are you absolutely certain the problem lies with her? Or could it be something within yourself? Your expectations, your fears, your insecurities. These are hard questions, but they're the kind of questions that lead to real clarity. Think about this. The Stoics believed in the immense power of self-awareness. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Before we rush to judge someone else, we're called to first examine what's happening within ourselves. Could it be that the frustration you feel stems not entirely from her actions, but from the weight of what you're carrying inside? Expectations, unspoken fears that have gone unchecked, or insecurities that cast shadows on how you see her. Take a quiet moment for reflection. Ask yourself, have you been projecting your own struggles onto her? Maybe there's a fear of vulnerability, of not being enough, or perhaps an expectation that she would fill every void in your life. These are human things. We all go through them, but acknowledging them is the first step toward growth. Imagine what could happen if you took responsibility for your part in this. What if instead of giving up, you worked on understanding your own heart? What if you approached her not with blame, but with openness? She might not be perfect, but neither are we. And sometimes by addressing the cracks within ourselves, we inspire the other person to heal too. This isn't about guilt or self-blame. It's about courage. It's about stepping into that uncomfortable space of self-reflection, guided by the wisdom of the Stoics, and finding the strength to grow. Who knows? That path might just lead to healing for both of you, or at the very least peace within yourself. Before you give up on her, take that step. You owe it to yourself and maybe to her too. If you've made it this far, it's clear you're serious about improving yourself and understanding your relationships on a deeper level. Now let's keep the conversation going. What resonated most with you about this idea of self-awareness and taking responsibility for your own growth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Or if you're not sure what to say, just leave this in the comments. Growth starts within. Your voice matters, and your insights could inspire someone else on their journey. Let's build a space for meaningful dialogue. No. 7. The power of patience. Picture a tree in your mind. A mighty oak, perhaps. It didn't sprout overnight. It took years of enduring harsh winters, swaying against fierce winds, and soaking up the sunshine to become what it is today. Tall, unshakable, and deeply rooted. Relationships are no different. They aren't meant to grow without struggle or effort. They thrive because of it. So ask yourself, are you ready to walk away because things feel tough right now? Or have you truly exhausted every avenue to make it work? There's a difference between letting go because it's time and giving up because the road feels rough. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us to endure and persist. This isn't about blindly pushing through every challenge, but about recognizing that patience and perseverance often lead to the most rewarding outcomes. True strength isn't found in avoiding the storm. It's in weathering it. Think about this. The moments of conflict or frustration you're facing, now could they be opportunities in disguise? Maybe she's pulling away because she's unsure or scared. Maybe she's testing whether you're the kind of person who will stand firm when things get hard instead of rushing to conclusions. Pause. Practice what the Stoics call apatheia, a calm, centered approach to challenges. Respond with understanding rather than frustration. Sometimes when you choose to stay calm and steady, you give her the space she needs to find clarity. It's easy to romanticize the beginning of a relationship when everything feels effortless. But love isn't built in the easy times. It's forged in the moments when you both have to decide if the bond you share is worth the effort. And yes, effort can be exhausting. But think of that tree again. Every storm it stood through only made its roots grow deeper. Of course, there are times when letting go is the right choice. But before you make that decision, reflect deeply. Have you communicated openly? Have you given her and yourself the chance to grow through this? Remember, the most meaningful things in life, whether it's love, a dream, or even a tree, take time, care, and resilience to reach their full potential. Don't give up on her or on what you've built without first giving your best. Who knows, this might just be the storm that strengthens your roots together. No. 8. Is it about control? Here's another tough one. Are you feeling upset or frustrated because you can't control her choices or how she reacts? It's a hard place to be. But let's be honest, relationships were never meant to be about control. They're about connection, about two people coming together while still respecting each other's individuality. Now let me share something from the Stoics that might help shift your perspective. They teach us a timeless truth. Focus only on what's within your control. Your actions, your thoughts, and your responses. Everything else, including her decisions and feelings, falls outside your sphere of influence. And I know that's easier said than done. But think about it. How much energy do we waste trying to steer someone else's feelings or choices? It's like trying to grasp water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the more you lose. Let's say you've been texting her, trying to explain yourself, or hoping for her to respond the way you want. But she doesn't reply, or when she does, it's not the reassurance you were hoping for. You start spiraling, thinking, what did I do wrong? How can I fix this? But the truth is, you're carrying a weight that isn't yours to bear. Her response isn't something you can control, no matter how perfect your message might be. What you can control is how you show up, calm, respectful, and confident in yourself. Imagine the scenario. Instead of overanalyzing her reactions, you focus on being the best version of yourself. You remain patient, understanding, and unwavering in your sense of peace. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop forcing. By letting go of that need to control, you might just give her the space to miss you, to see the value you bring, and to choose freely. To connect with you again. And if she doesn't, well, that's the hardest part to accept, but it's also where true strength lies. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Seek not for things to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do, and you will go on well." Letting go of what you can't control is not giving up. It's stepping into a mindset of peace and resilience. So are you focusing on connection or control? If it's the latter, maybe the best thing you can do for her, for the relationship, and most importantly, for yourself, is to let go of what isn't yours to control. That's where true strength begins, and who knows, it might just change everything. Note 9. Look beyond the conflict. When you're in the thick of a fight, or when things feel strained between you and her, it can feel like the walls are closing in, like this one moment defines everything. I get it, those emotions can be overwhelming. And it's tempting to think, maybe this is it, maybe we're done. But before you give up on her, ask yourself this: are you letting one chapter dictate the entire story? Think about this. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." The very challenges you face together aren't just obstacles, they are opportunities. They are a path, not a dead end. A tough conversation, a misunderstanding, or even a fight can be the exact thing that pushes you both to grow, not just as individuals but as partners. The question isn't about whether you should avoid conflict, it's about how you face it. Picture this: you're trying to climb a steep hill together. Halfway up, the incline gets rough, and it feels impossible. You could stop, let frustration take over, and walk back down. Or you could pause, catch your breath, and figure out how to help each other navigate the path. Relationships work the same way. The uphill moments, the struggles, these are the times when you discover what you're both made of and whether you're truly in this together. Maybe she's pulled back, or maybe there's been harsh words exchanged. Instead of focusing on the hurt or the frustration, ask yourself, what's really at the heart of this? What's she feeling, and what can I do? Not to fix everything immediately, but to listen, to understand. When you take a step back and remind yourself to respond with patience and grace, rather than react with anger, you create space for healing. Stoicism teaches us that we can't control the actions of others, but we can control how we respond. In a relationship, this might mean choosing to hold back from saying something hurtful in the heat of the moment. It might mean taking the time to reflect before making a decision you can't take back. Every conflict is a moment to decide, will this break us or will this build us? Think about how much she means to you. The good times you've shared, the small quiet moments that remind you why you started this journey together. Don't let the weight of one bad day erase all the days you've smiled, laughed, and leaned on each other. Before you give up, ask yourself if this is a storm you can weather together. Because sometimes it's the storms that make the relationship stronger. She's not perfect, and neither are you. But maybe, just maybe, this rough patch is the chance to create something even deeper, even more resilient. So before you walk away, take a breath. Think about what really matters. What stands in the way can become the way if you let it. No, 10. The art of letting go. Here's the reality. Sometimes letting go is not giving up. It's choosing what's right for both of you. I know that's hard to hear. Your heart might be saying, try one more time, but deep down, you might also feel the weight of a relationship that's causing more harm than good. If you've been holding on out of fear, guilt, or the hope that something might change, it's worth asking yourself, is this truly helping either of you grow? Seneca once said, sometimes we must part ways with grace. Think about those words for a second. Parting ways doesn't mean you failed. And it doesn't mean the love you shared wasn't real. It simply means you've reached a place where staying together might hinder both of you from becoming the people you're meant to be. Letting go with grace is one of the most loving things you can do. It's an act of courage, not weakness. For example, imagine a bird trapped in a cage. You love the bird and you've taken care of it, but you start to notice it's no longer singing the way it used to. It seems restless, even unhappy. You have two choices. You can keep the cage shut, trying to force happiness, or you can open the door and let it fly. Letting it go doesn't mean you loved it any less. In fact, it shows how much you loved it, because you were willing to prioritize its freedom over your desire to keep it close. The same applies to relationships. If you've tried, if you've communicated, and if you've given your all, but things still feel unbalanced, it's okay to choose peace. But here's the key: do it with dignity. Do it with kindness. Don't let bitterness or anger dictate your actions. Instead, honor the moments you shared and the lessons you learned from each other. Leave the door open for respect, even if love in its old form has changed. You cannot control her feelings or the outcome of the relationship, but you can control how you show up in this moment. Choose to show up with integrity. Choose to let go with love. And choose to walk away knowing you've done what's best for both of your journeys. Before you give up on her, just think about this. Letting go doesn't mean the end. It might simply be a new beginning for her, for you, and for the peace you both deserve. No. 11. What legacy do you want to leave? Finally, think about this. How do you want her to remember you? As someone who threw in the towel at the first sign of trouble, or as a man who stood firm, gave his best, and acted with dignity, no matter the outcome? Life is full of moments where our character is tested, and relationships often bring the greatest tests of all. The Stoics taught us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our intentions, our responses. You can't control her feelings or choices, but you can control how you show up. Are you showing up as the best version of yourself? Are you acting with honor, patience, and understanding? Imagine years from now, when she looks back on this chapter of her life, will she remember you as the one who gave up too easily, or as the man who demonstrated strength by balancing vulnerability with unwavering self-respect? There's power in walking away with grace, if that's what's required. But there's also immense strength in staying and putting in the work, especially when it's hard. For example, there's a conflict between you two. Maybe it's misunderstanding, frustration, or even just emotional distance. It's tempting to shut down or walk away in those moments. But how would a man of integrity handle it? A Stoic man would take a breath, consider what he values most, and act accordingly. He wouldn't let ego or impatience dictate his actions. Instead, he would seek clarity and understanding, even when it feels uncomfortable. Ultimately, this isn't just about her. It's about you. The kind of man you are today shapes the kind of legacy you leave behind. Whether you choose to stay or go, Make sure your actions reflect the person you aspire to be. Lead with kindness, respect, and effort. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a question of does she deserve me? It's a question of am I proud of the way I'm showing up? You're not just deciding the fate of a relationship, you're deciding the kind of man you're becoming. So before you give up, ask yourself if you've truly given your best. If you have, then no matter what happens, you can walk away with your head held high, knowing you lived up to your own highest standards. That's what a Stoic would call true strength. As we reach the end of this video, I want to leave you with some thoughts to reflect on. Relationships are a mirror. They reflect not only who we are, but also who we are becoming. They challenge us, frustrate us, and at times bring us to the edge of our emotional limits. But they also have the potential to teach us about patience, empathy, and the power of perspective. What we've explored here isn't just about the relationship you're navigating. It's about how you choose to approach life's challenges. The Stoics teach us that our greatest strength lies in self-mastery, our ability to act with intention, rather than reacting impulsively to fleeting emotions. Before you make a decision, ask yourself, have I acted with clarity? Have I listened not just to her words, but to the emotions beneath them? Have I communicated openly? And have I taken responsibility for my own role? In this relationship, these aren't easy questions, but they are necessary ones. If you've ever felt like walking away was your only option, consider this. Relationships, like life, are full of seasons. The moments of distance, conflict, or frustration are often the ones that push us to grow, both as individuals and as partners. But growth requires effort, patience, and above all, honesty with her and with yourself. The question isn't just whether the relationship is worth it, but whether you've done your part to nurture it. At the same time, it's important to recognize when holding on might be more harmful than letting go. The Stoics remind us that we can't control others. We can only control ourselves. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is to let go with grace, allowing both of you to grow in the ways you need. Seneca's words resonate deeply here. Sometimes we must part ways with grace. Letting go isn't failure. It's an act of courage and respect, both for her and for yourself. So as you move forward, remember this. You have the power to decide how this chapter ends. Whether you choose to stay and rebuild, or walk away with dignity, make sure your actions reflect the person you aspire to be. Act with integrity, patience, and kindness. Because at the end of the day, relationships are not about winning or losing. They're about connection, growth, and the legacy you leave behind. Now let's take a moment to focus on the next steps. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear your perspective. What part of today's message spoke to you the most? Have you faced a similar situation? And if so, what did you learn? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one of them, and your insights could inspire others who are on their own journey. If you found value here, don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who might need these lessons. Relationships can feel isolating at times, but the truth is, we're all navigating the same challenges in different ways. Let's create a space where we can learn from one another and grow together. Before you go, take a look at the videos on screen. They're filled with more insights to help you navigate relationships, embrace Stoic principles, and become the best version of yourself. These lessons are here to guide you, whether you're facing challenges in love, self-growth, or life's unpredictable twists and turns. Thank you for spending this time with me today. remember you're not alone in this. Every step you take, every moment of reflection is a step toward clarity. And peace. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and keep growing.